Just hatched. Thank you for joining us for a special episode of Virtual Vitamin Z, bringing the Detroit Zoo to you. My name is Zara. I'm an education specialist at the Detroit Zoological Society. And joining me today is Claire, a curator of education. At the Detroit Zoological Society, we celebrate and save wildlife every day. Today, we'll be talking about the peregrine falcons who have found the Detroit water tower as the perfect place to raise their 4 hatchlings. Later on, we'll be checking in on the live cam to take a look at the peregrine falcons, and we will be talking to our associate curator of birds, Bonnie. Before that, let's take a look at some of the vocabulary I'll be mentioning today. So today I'm going to mention words like wingspan, talon, and bioaccumulation. Now, I have a picture of a peregrine falcon. And this peregrine falcon is a bird of prey. That means it's a predator. It's a bird that is a predator. It hunts other animals. This peregrine falcon lives at the top of the food web below smaller birds, smaller fish, insects, and plants. The bird is not a very big bird. The peregrine falcon is not very big. It's about medium-sized. It goes anywhere from 13 to 23 inches long. So the size of slightly bigger than the size of a piece of paper. Like other birds, they have hollow bones. And this is important because it helps the peregrine falcon fly. So hollow bones means that their bones have an opening in the middle, kind of like a straw you would drink with. This helps keep them light in weight. Peregrine falcons only weigh about 3 pounds at their heaviest. I'm going to show you a picture of the wingspan of a peregrine falcon. So what is a wingspan? A wingspan is when you measure an animal from one tip, so like my fingertips right over here, all the way to my fingertips right over here. So for a human, our wingspan is about the same as our height. So if I was this tall, my wingspan would be this tall. For a peregrine falcon, their wingspan is more than double their height. So a bird that's this tall or a peregrine falcon that's this tall would have a wingspan that's more than this. This is also another thing that helps make them really good at flying. Peregrine falcons also have really big eyes. If we go back to the last slide, I can show you just how big their eyes are. So despite their small size, they have really big eyes that make them really good at seeing things from really high above. So when they're flying on top, they can look down and use their eyes that are bigger than human eyes and see better to see the animals that they're hunting. And hunting is a really important part of a bird of prey's life, especially for the peregrine falcon, who also uses hunting as mating behavior. So we're gonna flip over to our next picture, and you see 2 birds here. So one way that a peregrine falcon hunts is a male peregrine falcon will be up in the air, flying around, and when he sees a predator, he'll come right down and swoop down in its super fast speed. It can get faster than a car on an interstate at 180 miles per hour and grab that prey. Once they have their animal, they'll fly back up and offer it to a female. The female, while in flight, can flip up and grab it from the male's talons, or that's his sharp claws that hold on to the animal. All of this helps them get together and lay eggs. Now, you might have seen the 2 falcons who live here at the Detroit Zoo. If not, I have a picture for you. All right, so I have one of the birds right over here and some of the eggs and some of the hatchlings, and you might have noticed that recently one of them will stay and incubate the eggs, and that means they would sit on top of them, keeping them warm, and that's really, really important, and we'll get to that in a little bit. Keeping them warm while the other goes out and hunts for food. These 2 that live at the Detroit Zoo are known as Justice and KJ. The male is Justice, and he's usually the one that goes out hunting, while KJ stays behind and incubates the eggs, keeping them warm. Now, we're going to get Bonnie, our associate curator of birds, on the call with us to answer some of your questions. If you do have questions, be sure to comment them and we'll try to get to them right now. And if not, we'll get to them later.
Bonnie should be joining. She's just connecting right now.
So as of this morning, 4 hatchlings have hatched. So there's 4 hatchlings up there, and you can watch them anytime live on the Detroit Zoo's website.
Actually, while we're waiting for Bonnie to connect, oh, there she is.
There she is.
As of this morning, 4 hatchlings have hatched. So there's 4 hatchlings out there, and
Ooh.
Hi, Bonnie. Can you hear us?
I can. Can you hear me?
Awesome. Yep.
While we're waiting for Bonnie to connect.
Oh, there she is.
Bonnie, you might want to close out the live feed you're watching.
Oh,
Sorry.
So I'm
That's
going to
okay.
I'm going to share the live cam while Bonnie's answering a couple of questions that we had. Actually, we have a quick question that came in from one of our Facebook viewers. They want to know how old the pair is that are nesting up on the water tower.
the female is KJ, and she was born in 2016, so she is 4 years old. The male, Justice, was born in 2012 in Jackson County, and he came with a different female to DZS in 2016.
And then Sheila would like to know how long before the hatchlings will start to fly.
Probably 4 to 6 weeks. They grow fast, and you can see that they're being fed constantly, and birds are designed to grow relatively fast so that they can fledge in 4 to 6 weeks.
All right. So Bonnie, do you know what the baby birds are eating right now?
Yes, I've been watching. It's a variety of other birds. Peregrine falcons are predatory, and they like to eat other small birds. So they've been mostly bringing in starlings and some pigeons. They have been known to eat gulls and other songbirds.
Alex would like to know how many chicks this pair has had.
This is the first time. It's exciting. This is the first year we've had the live cam, and it's the first year that these two have hatched chicks. They were together last year, and they did lay eggs, but I think she was too young. Now that she's 4 and they've hatched 4, we're still waiting to see what's going to happen with that 5th egg.
Actually, Irene just asked that same question about the eggs as to how many there were and if all of them had hatched yet.
Yep, there were 5 laid, and 4 of them have hatched. The 4th one hatched today around 8:45 this morning. The 5th one we're still watching closely, and I'm not seeing any hatching activity, but it's been hard to catch the actual pipping that's been going on. So we are optimistic, but we hope that this chick, if it does hatch, it hatches by tomorrow so that it's not too far behind in growth.
All right, I have a question. You mentioned the names of the birds and you knew a little bit about how they traveled. How do you have that information?
Well, there's a peregrine, well, we work closely with one of our partners, Michigan DNR, and they track all of the peregrine falcon nesting in Michigan. There's also a peregrine community club that you can join on Facebook that follows a lot of the falcons in the southeast region of Michigan. And if you go on their websites or the DNR's websites, you can see a nice description of their bands and how to read them and to pull up information on them if you're interested.
I don't have any other questions from any of our Facebook viewers. Zara, did you have any more for Bonnie?
How are the tags read?
The tags are, it's interesting. It looks like it might be easy, but it's kind of hard. Each bird has a band on the right leg, and it's a metal band. The male happens to have a purple metal band. So if you see a purple metal band on the right leg, that's the male. The female has just a metal band on her right leg, and then she has a bicolor plastic band on her left leg, and it's black over blue, and it has a number on it. The male has also a bicolor band on his left leg, and it's black over red. and you can sometimes see the number 8 on his band. Male's just smaller, and you can tell the male because he's got a wider neck region underneath his chin, and the female has a lot of dots or speckling right underneath her chin. You can tell the difference between the two of them.
Bonnie, I had another question from a Facebook viewer. They would like to know if there are any falcons living in Ypsilanti.
I think that there are. Actually, I believe that, and this is what I've heard, that KJ spent some time in Ann Arbor at the U of M campus before she came here last year. I do know that there's some in the Ypsilanti area.
And Diane is curious as to how the bands get put on the falcons.
Well, in this case, in the water tower, that will probably never happen to these youngsters just because of their location. But we work closely with our partners, and the DNR usually access the chicks when they're between 4 and 6 weeks old. And they grab them and they put the official bands on them for watching them and tracking all of their behaviors.
And I have one more question for you. Sheila would like to know, do they stay in Michigan or do they migrate?
They can stay around all year round. We don't see them as much in the winter period at the tower. Occasionally we will see them, but they do stick around.
Okay,
Sorry.
Bonnie, before you get off, I do have one more question I'd like you to answer. Can you talk a little bit about their nest box?
Sure. This nest box was specifically designed with the measurements that we have. The catwalk up there is pretty narrow and we only have a certain amount of space. So we worked with the DNR and got some nice diagrams of proven successful nest boxes they've used previously. And so we had this one built and installed up there, and they investigated it the first year that it was up there.
All right, thank you so much for joining us, Bonnie. If any of our viewers have more questions for her, go ahead and keep sending them in, and we will reach out to her after this and we'll try to get your answers. And for all of our viewers, continue to watch the live feed for the next 2 to 3 weeks, because the baby birds will be growing really quickly, really fast over these next 3 weeks. They will get to 10 times the size they are right now. All right, so it's really great that that such an urban area like the Detroit Zoo's water tower is home to these birds, because not too long ago in the 1950s and 60s, the number of peregrine falcons was low all throughout the United States. Michigan was down to 1 breeding nest in 1957. This was because of a chemical that was used as a pesticide, DDT. DDT was used to treat crops to keep insects away. And it ended up having a really harmful effect on animals that lived higher up in the food chain, like the birds of prey, like the peregrine falcons. So DDT would be introduced into the water in small amounts and would grow in concentration up the food chain up until it was with the birds of prey, like the peregrine falcons. This process is called bioaccumulation, and to help explain it, because it's kind of a little confusing, Clara has a demonstration she'd like to share with you.
Okay. So I put together a very brief demonstration because this is kind of a complex concept to decipher and understand. So I have a short video for you that I'm going to play. Down here on the bottom, these cups, you have a drop of food coloring in to represent DDT that's accumulating in the plants at the producer or the bottom level of this food chain. So small fish eat plants, and as they eat a whole bunch of plants to get the food that they need, they start to accumulate that DDT in their bodies. And then as the larger fish eat the smaller fish, even more of that DDT or whatever chemical it might be starts to accumulate in the bodies of the larger fish. And you can see how the water's starting to get a little bit darker because the concentration of that DDT is becoming stronger. And by the time it gets up to the falcon at the very top of it, you've accumulated a lot of DDT or other pesticides, and that can have really harmful effects on any top level predator. And I did a quick picture here to kind of demonstrate how that all looks. So your bottom level, where the producers are, where your plants are, you can see that's not as much of a concentration of DDT, but as you move up to the smaller fish and then the bigger fish, and then finally to the falcon, you can see how it bioaccumulates in their body and can cause problems.
All right, to talk a little bit about what DDT did to the body, you're gonna have to think back to what I said about incubation. So remember how I said that the birds would sit on top of the eggs to keep them warm so that they could incubate and hatch? What DDT did is it made the eggs the shell of the eggs really weak. They could no longer support the weight of the adult. So when a falcon went to sit on its bird to incubate it, or on its egg to incubate it and keep it warm, the egg would crush and no hatchling would form. This ended up causing the population to decline, and the amount of peregrine falcons all throughout the country really decreased. But this also inspired conservationists to work together and try to figure out what was happening and come up with solutions. They saw that DDT was having this effect. So by working together, humans were able to, or in the United States, we were able to ban the use of DDT as a pesticide. Once the levels of DDT in the water dropped, well, falcons that were living in human care were released into the wild to establish a new population. The Detroit Zoological Society worked with the Michigan Department of Natural Resources to tag these animals and monitor them in the wild and make sure that they're still surviving and reproducing and helping reestablish the population. The story of the peregrine falcons is really important and showing how humans can take a look at our actions and what changes we need to make to help fix problems that we caused. By taking away DDT and taking other steps, we were able to reestablish a population that humans had harmed. Thank you for tuning in today for this special episode about the peregrine falcons. Check back tomorrow for some more virtual vitamin C with Steven. Thank you.